Okay, so today we're taking a deep dive into something that's, well, it's on the minds of a lot of aspiring students globally.
Right.
We're talking about navigating the U.S. F1 student visa process.
Yeah, it can definitely feel like a maze sometimes.
Exactly. And our mission here, is to try and cut through some of that complexity. We want to give you the essential insights, the practical guidance, basically drawing from all the information we've gathered. The goal is for you to feel really well informed, prepared for each step.
That's absolutely the plan. We'll cover, the key things right from the start, the application itself, the interview, which is crucial, and even touch on what happens if maybe things don't go smoothly. We want you to have the knowledge to tackle this with, well, confidence and clarity.
Great. So let's start right at the beginning then. When we talk student visas for the U.S., it's not just one size fits all, is it? Can you maybe quickly break down the main types before we really zero in on the F1?
Sure, absolutely. It helps to see the landscape. As you said, we're focusing mainly on the F1 today because, honestly, it's the most common one. It's for academic studies, colleges, universities, even language programs sometimes. It's your typical degree path visa.
Okay.
Then you've got the J1. That's more for exchange programs, could be cultural, high school, some university research falls under this too. And the M1, that's for vocational or non-academic stuff. Think flight school, culinary arts, technical training, things like that. But yeah, for most university-bound students listening, F1 is the one.
Right. F1 it is for most people then.
Yeah.
So you figure out you need the F1. What's the first big step? Our material hammers this home, the DS-160 form.
Yeah.
And the message is just be honest. Why is that so critical? What's really on the line?
Oh, it's absolutely fundamental. That DS-160, the electronic application, it's an official government document. Complete honesty and accuracy aren't just like good ideas, they're non-negotiable. Any false information, or even if you say something different in the interview, it can lead to really severe consequences.
Like what specifically?
We're talking about a potential finding of fraud. That's under INA Section 212 ACI. And what that means, in simple terms, is you could get a permanent bar from ever entering the U.S. Ever.
Wow. A permanent ban.
Exactly. It's like being blacklisted for life. And it's incredibly hard, basically impossible, to overcome a fraud finding. Plus, remember, the embassy staff, they have access to all sorts of databases. They can cross-check information very quickly. So what you write down needs to be the truth, the whole truth.
Okay, message received. Permanent bar, definitely something to avoid. So, once you've carefully and honestly filled out that DS-160, what comes next? The documents for the interview. It sounds like you need quite a pile.
You do, yeah. Organization is really key here. First up, your I-20 form. That's the certificate of eligibility issued by your university. It's linked to your SEVIS record. That's the government's tracking system for students. So the I-20 is proof you're accepted and expected.
Got it. I-20 first.
Then, the DS-160 confirmation page proof you submitted the form. Receipts showing you paid the visa application fee and the SEVIS fee. Your appointment letter for the interview. A valid passport needs to be valid for at least 6 months beyond when you plan to stay. A recent photo meeting their specs.
Okay.
And then all your academic stuff, transcripts, certificates, diplomas, any standardized test scores like SAT, TOEFL, IELTS. And really importantly, documents showing your financial situation and your ties to your home country. If someone else is sponsoring you, like parents, you need proof of that relationship and their finances too.
You mentioned the SEVIS fee again there. That seems to pop up a lot. Is that one absolutely mandatory? No wiggle room?
Zero wiggle room. The SEVIS fee payment is a must. You have to pay it before the interview, and you absolutely must bring proof of payment to the interview. They won't even proceed without it. Simple as that.
All right. So foundation laid, documents gathered. Now we hit, well, what feel like the two biggest hurdles for many. Showing you can actually afford it, and maybe even trickier, proving you really intend to go back home afterwards. Let's talk money first. Financial stability.
Yeah, this is a major one. You, the F1 applicant, need to show you have enough money to cover all your costs.
Okay.
And I really mean all tuition, books, living expenses, insurance, travel for the entire time you plan to study, not just the first year.
The entire duration, that's a high bar.
It is. So acceptable proof could be things like recent bank statements, ideally from family or sponsors. If you have sponsors, clear documentation about them. Any financial aid or scholarship letters are great. Maybe letters from employers showing salary, especially if your sponsor is self-employed. And a good tip, keep copies of this financial proof handy when you actually travel to the U.S. The border officers might ask to see it too.
Good tip. Okay, so finance is covered, but then there's this other thing. Non-immigrant intent. Sounds a bit abstract, but our info says it's the top reason for F1 denials under Section 214B. What does that actually mean for you as an applicant? Why is it such a big deal?
It's the absolute core of the F1 visa. You have to grasp this. The F1 is temporary, it's non-immigrant. That means, by law, you must convince the consular officer that you plan to return to your home country after you finish your studies. You're asking for temporary permission to study, not to live there permanently.
Even if you secretly hope to stay later?
Even then, for the purpose of the F1 application and interview, your stated and demonstrated intent must be to return home. Section 214B is basically the legal reason they can use to deny you if they're not convinced of that intent. It's like saying, you haven't shown us strong enough ties to your home country.
So it's not enough to just say, I'll go back. How do you actually show it? What are they looking for? How do you build that case effectively?
Exactly. It's about showing, not just telling. Strong ties are key. Things like having close family, parents, spouse, kids back home. Owning property there is good. Other financial ties, like investments or businesses. Maybe a job offer waiting for you when you graduate, especially one that uses the degree you're getting.
Yeah.
Even showing you're active in your community back home, clubs, organizations, things like that. It all paints a picture that you have a life, a future to return to, that leaving the U.S. makes sense for you.
This brings up a really tough scenario, though. We saw a discussion about this maybe from a Reddit forum or similar source about someone who's been in the U.S. a long time, maybe has close family who are citizens, and honestly, they don't plan to go back. It feels like applying for an F1 is contradictory for them. What's the advice there?
That's a really challenging situation, and it highlights the difficulty. But the advice, even then, has to be honesty. Because lying, as we said, especially about intent, can lead to that permanent fraud bar. If someone genuinely doesn't intend to return, the F1 visa probably isn't the right path for them. Its whole legal basis is temporary stay with intent to return.
So what should they do?
In those complex cases, talking to a qualified immigration attorney is really, really crucial. They need expert advice. There might be other visa options that better fit their actual situation and goals, maybe an E2 investor visa, or potentially even asylum if they meet the very specific, strict criteria. Trying to force the F1 when the intent isn't there is risky and likely won't work. You need the right visa for your circumstances.
Makes sense. Find the right path. And sticking with honesty, what about relatives already in the U.S.? Do you absolutely have to mention them on the DS-160, even if you worry it might look bad?
Yes, absolutely vital. You must disclose U.S. relatives, honestly. Assume the immigration authorities can find this information anyway through their systems. They likely know. Hiding it looks like you're trying to deceive them, and that immediately raises red flags and could sink your application. Having relatives there isn't automatically disqualifying, but lying about it definitely is. Be transparent.
Okay, clear message there. So documents are ready, intent is understood, hopefully honestly represented. Now, the interview itself, crunch time. How do you make a good first impression? What about just showing up?
First impressions do count. There's no magic formula, but looking professional helps. Dress formally, maybe a dress shirt, tie, suit, pantsuit, jacket. It shows you're taking it seriously. Keep accessories minimal. Maybe go easy on strong perfumes or colognes. Just look neat, well-groomed. Feeling comfortable, but looking presentable helps your confidence, which is important.
Right, confidence helps. So, you're in the room looking sharp. What kinds of questions should you expect? Our material grouped them into a few main areas.
Yeah, typically 5 main areas. First, your study plans. Why the U.S.? Why not study this back home? Be ready to talk about the quality of education-specific programs. Second, why this particular university? Show you did your homework. Mention professors, research, rankings, specific courses.
Okay, study plans, university choice.
Third, your academic ability. They might ask about your grades, test scores like TOEFL or IELTS. They want to see you can handle the coursework and that your English is good enough. Be ready to talk about your scores and how you plan to keep improving if needed.
Makes sense. And then the big two, money and future plans.
Exactly. Fourth is your financial status. How will you pay for everything, again, for the whole program, without working illegally? You need a clear answer. And fifth, probably the most critical, your post-graduation plans. This is where you reiterate your intent to return home. Talk about those ties, family, property, job offers, career goals back home that your U.S. degree will help with.
The key seems to be being genuine, right? Not just memorizing answers.
Absolutely. Practice, yes, but don't sound robotic. Be concise, be direct, be honest. Let your real reasons and, hopefully, enthusiasm come through.
Okay, now, something serious. What if someone has a past run-in with the law, a criminal history? How does that affect the visa process?
This is super important and often mishandled. You absolutely must answer yes to the question, have you ever been arrested or convicted for any offense or crime on the application? Even if charges were dropped, even if you were found not guilty. If you were arrested, meaning formally taken into custody, maybe read your rights, you have to say yes.
Even for something minor or something that happened long ago?
Yes. Don't try to judge if it's minor or not disclose it. Because a conviction, especially for certain types of crimes, can make getting a visa very difficult, sometimes impossible. And get this, even a DUI or DWI, driving under the influence, arrest or conviction can cause your current visa stamp to be canceled. It could stop you from re-entering the U.S.
Wow. And what about students already in the U.S.?
There are reporting requirements. Universities often have to report disciplinary actions for criminal convictions. Law enforcement can and does share arrest information with ICE, Immigration, and Customs Enforcement. The systems are connected. Assume they can see it, even if you don't mention it. Lying about it is fraud, leading back to that permanent bar we talked about.
So if this applies to someone listening, if they've ever been arrested or had legal trouble, what's the absolute first thing they should do?
Immediately contact 2 lawyers, one who specializes in immigration law and one who specializes in criminal law. You need both perspectives. A criminal lawyer might give advice that solves the criminal issue but creates a huge immigration problem without realizing it. An immigration lawyer understands the visa consequences. Look for lawyers perhaps through ALA, the American Immigration Lawyers Association, as a good starting point.
Okay, crucial advice there. Let's shift to a tough outcome. Visa denial. It happens. What are the common reasons, and what can you actually do about it?
It's definitely disheartening, but understanding why is key. Beyond failing to show non-immigrant intent, denials can happen for other reasons. Simple mistakes, like an incomplete application form, even a typo, not showing enough money for the whole program. Sometimes, even if the university accepted you, the consular officer might look at your past grades and decide you're not a serious student.
Really? Even after university acceptance?
Yes, they make their own assessment. Also, poor English skills demonstrated in the interview. Or just a bad interview performance. Maybe you seemed nervous, unsure, evasive, and of course, criminal history or previous visa violations like overstaying.
If you do get denied, is there any way to appeal that decision?
No, unfortunately, there's no formal appeal process for a U.S. visa denial, but you can reapply. The critical thing is to understand why you were denied. They usually give you a refusal letter citing a section of the law.
What are the common denial codes?
You might see 221G. That means incomplete application or more documents needed. It's not final. You can sit at the missing info, usually within a year. Then there's 214B. The big one we discussed, failure to show non-immigrant intent or qualify for the visa. That's often harder to overcome. 212A4 means insufficient finances. And 212AC is the fraud or misrepresentation finding the permanent bar.
So if you want to reapply, what's the strategy? Just try again immediately.
Definitely not, unless the reason was simple, like a missing document you now have, a 221G. If it was 214B or finances, you need to wait until your situation has significantly changed or you have much stronger evidence addressing the specific reason for denial. Just reapplying with the same information is usually a waste of time and money. And be aware, a previous denial can make it harder the next time. Getting expert advice, maybe from an education counselor or immigration lawyer, before reapplying is often a very good idea.
That makes a lot of sense. We've covered a ton of ground for students themselves. Before we wrap up, I really want to focus on some practical advice for the parents. They're often the sponsors, the support system. It's a huge undertaking for them, too.
Oh, absolutely. Parents play such a vital role. So for parents listening, here are some key things to keep in mind, both for the interview stage and when your child actually arrives in the U.S.
Great, let's hear them.
Okay, during the visa interview process. First, really stress honesty to your child. Make sure they understand how crucial it is to be truthful on the DS-160 and in the interview. No white lies, no omissions. Remind them about the potential for that permanent bar.
Honesty first, got it.
Second, help them prepare to talk about their reasons for returning home. Don't just focus on jobs. Encourage them to talk about family, community connections, specific plans they have back home. Make it personal and genuine.
Okay, ties to home.
Third, the finances. Get all the financial documents meticulously organized. Be ready, perhaps even practice with your child, explaining clearly where the money comes from and confirming it's enough for the entire program duration, tuition, living, everything. And this is important. If you have other children you're also supporting financially, be ready to show how you can afford all your commitments.
Right, the whole financial picture.
Exactly. And finally, help them prepare for the questions. practice answering in English. It's not about memorizing scripts, but building their confidence so they can speak clearly and concisely under pressure.
That's excellent advice for the lead-up. What about when they actually arrive?
Lab.
At the airport, the port of entry.
Right, at the port of entry, make sure your child carries all those key original documents, especially the I-20 and the financial proof in their carry-on bag. Not check luggage. The Customs and Border Protection CBP officer might want to see them.
Carry-on only. Check.
And just reiterate the importance of being truthful and polite with the CBP officers. Answer their questions directly and concisely. Their job is just to verify everything is in order for entry. Honesty and clarity make that process smooth.
Fantastic. That's incredibly helpful practical advice for parents navigating this alongside their kids. Well, this has been a really thorough deep dive into the F1 visa maze. Hopefully, this gives you, our listeners, a much clearer map and more confidence.
We hope so too.
All the best with your applications and your studies, and we will meet again with another important subject in the next meeting.